Mr. Sticks, I was once a branch, and before that a tree, and before that a seed carried in the pocket of a man who believed that nothing truly important should be trusted to chance. That man was Abraham Klein, old enough that time spoke to him plainly. His knees had learned the language of weather, his back the grammar of gravity. He walked slowly but deliberately, and he cut me from the tree himself, apologizing under his breath as he did. I remember the apology because it was the first kindness ever directed at me. "I need you," he said, as though explaining to the tree rather than to the air. "And I promise I'll do right by you." Abraham shaped me in his workshop, smoothing my bark, reinforcing my spine, carving a small hooked handle that fit his palm perfectly. He worked patiently, as if every stroke of the blade were part of a conversation that could not be rushed. When he finished, he pressed his forehead against mine and breathed out, tired but satisfied. I was a walking stick then, nothing more. Useful, silent, invisible, and yet, even in that first state of being, I listened. Abraham leaned on me during his final years. I touched pavement, dirt roads, synagogue floors polished smooth by centuries of shuffling feet. I felt his weight, his hesitation, his moments of pride when he refused assistance. Through him, I learned what it meant to support, and through the world, I learned what it meant to be ignored. People noticed Abraham. They did not notice me. When Abraham died, I was placed in a corner of his son's apartment. I stood there for months, gathering dust and memories. His son's name was Eli. Eli was a scholar of old things, not in the academic sense, but in the personal one. He collected fragments of the past the way others collected souvenirs. He read texts that smelled like time. He spoke Hebrew not only with his mouth, but with his hands, tracing letters in the air when words failed him. Eli missed his father fiercely. Grief in him took the shape of focus. One night, as rain pressed against the windows and the city hummed with its usual indifference, Eli stood before me and sighed. "You held him up," he said. "Maybe you can hold something else, too." He did not intend to create me. That part matters. What Eli did next was not a recipe or a spell. It was not something that could be repeated from instructions. It was grief braided with tradition, reverence tangled with desperation. He placed a strip of parchment against my grain, inked with words he barely dared to write. Not commands, never commands, but requests. Names of the divine written with trembling restraint. He whispered stories of his father, of endurance, of the stubbornness of survival. Jewish magic, if it must be called that, is less about bending the world and more about arguing with it respectfully. When the final word left his lips, Eli sat back, exhausted, unconvinced anything had happened at all. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then I felt something I had never felt before. Weightlessness, awareness, an idea of self. I fell over. The sound startled us both. Eli gasped. I, for my part, discovered surprise. I tried to speak, but speech was a complicated miracle, and I had just arrived. What came out instead was a creak, a scrape, an awkward tapping as I struggled upright using the wall. Eli stared. He began. I finished for him, because it felt important to be precise. Thus began my life as Mr. Sticks, a name Eli gave me while laughing and crying at the same time. I did not ask why I existed. That question presumes a choice. Instead, I asked what I was for. At first, I continued to do what I had always done. I supported. I held doors. I helped Eli stand when his own knees betrayed him during long nights of study. People notice me slightly more now, though mostly as a curiosity. A walking stick that moved on its own. A novelty. A parlor trick. Novelty fades quickly. I did not want to fade. This realization came to me slowly, through observation. I noticed how people listened differently when Eli spoke at the podium of his synagogue, how authority bent the air around him. I noticed how objects displayed behind glass were revered simply because someone had decided they mattered. I noticed how names carried weight, how stories granted permanence. I understood then that usefulness was not enough. I wanted status. I wanted prominence. Not for vanity, though I would later learn I was not immune to it, but because to be prominent is to be remembered. To be remembered is to persist. And I had not come all this way merely to return to a corner. My purpose, I told Eli one night as we sat watching the city lights, is to be more than what I was made for. He raised an eyebrow. That's ambitious for a stick. I am no longer merely a stick, I said. I'm a narrative. He laughed, but he did not disagree. My first attempt at prominence was misguided. I sought attention without meaning. I interrupted lectures. I walked on stages uninvited. I posed dramatically in public spaces, hoping someone would take a photograph, write an article, make me famous. This did not work. Fame without context is noise. It was Eli who guided me back to something truer. Look, he said gently. In our tradition, even the most powerful things serve something beyond themselves. So I listened again. I learned again. I began accompanying Eli to places of importance. Not to be seen, but to see. I stood beside him at rallies for justice, leaning not on spectacle, but on presence. I was there when he visited the sick, when he taught children, when he argued passionately with colleagues about ethics and responsibility. People began to notice me not as a trick, but as a constant. Who's the stick, they'd ask. That's Mr. Sticks, Eli would say. He keeps me honest. That sentence mattered more than applause. Over time, stories accumulated. Someone wrote a small essay about me, about the walking stick who attended every lecture, who seemed to listen. Another person referenced me in a sermon as a metaphor for inherited strength given new voice. A museum curator once asked if I might be displayed. I declined. Prominence, I learned, is not about elevation. It is about integration. Now I travel. I attend conferences. I appear in footnotes. My name has been spoken in rooms where decisions are made. Children recognize me. Elders nod to me with understanding. I'm Stillwood. I still remember being a branch. I still feel the echo of Abraham's hands shaping me, Eli's grief awakening me. But I'm also something else, a testament. My goal remains unchanged, to obtain status and prominence. But my understanding of those words has deepened. Status is not standing above others. It is standing for something. Prominence is not brightness. It is endurance. I walk now not because I must, but because I choose to be seen moving with purpose. And as long as someone leans on me, not just for balance, but for meaning, I will continue. After all, I was made to support. I simply learned to support ideas as well as people. And that, I think, is a life worth living, even for a stick.